Have you ever watched The Lion King? If so, you've probably heard this 1,000 times. It's a story about courage. Simba has to face his past. He must return to become king. But what if I told you this movie isn't really about courage? What if it's actually one of the most profound stories about abandonment trauma ever made by Disney? Because when we look with emotional eyes, not childlike ones, we see something different. A boy who loses his father, is manipulated into blaming himself, runs away from home, numbs his pain with easy humor, and only returns when he can finally face what he fled. This isn't heroism. It's silent healing. And today, we're going to break it down scene by scene to show how trauma hides in stories we thought we knew. Let's start at the beginning. At the beginning of the film, Simba is introduced as the future king. Everything around him shines, the savannah, the music, the celebration. He is loved, expected, protected. But there's a key moment. When Mufasa takes him to the top of Pride Rock and says, "Everything the light touches is our kingdom." Then he points to a dark place on the horizon. "But you must never go there." This moment is symbolic. The forbidden place isn't just a cliff. It's a metaphor for the unknown, for danger, for what cannot be controlled. And it's exactly there that Scar leads him. Scar manipulates Simba by saying, "Your father said you can't go there. But real kings prove they can." And so, he plants the seed. You'll only be worthy if you defy the rules. You'll only be seen if you risk everything. This isn't just betrayal. It's a repetition of toxic family dynamics. Children who grow up learning that love equals approval. And approval equals performance. How many of us, even as adults, still act like this? We take extreme risks. Seek external validation. Put ourselves in dangerous situations. Just to prove we are worthy. Then, the unimaginable happens. Mufasa dies. Not by accident. By betrayal. But worse than death is the message Simba hears before running away. Your father died trying to save you. A simple sentence, but loaded with guilt. See, Simba didn't see Scar push Mufasa. He only knows his father died trying to save him. And like every traumatized child, he interprets this as, "It was my fault. If I hadn't gone to the valley. If I hadn't asked for help. If I were better." And this is where trauma is born. Not in the death itself, but in the emotional interpretation of loss. Here, the film shows something rare. The exact moment a child decides they don't deserve to exist. Simba runs away. Not because he's afraid of Scar, but because he's afraid of himself. He believes he's a monster. That he brought death. That he destroyed the kingdom. In this state of emotional collapse, he meets Timon and Pumbaa. Two characters who represent what every wounded person needs to hear. Hakuna Matata. No worries. Forget the past. Live in the present. Sounds positive. Yes. But it's also emotional anesthesia. Because, forgetting the past doesn't heal trauma. It just buries it. And here ends the first block. Simba isn't a hero fleeing danger. He's a traumatized child fleeing guilt. And he will spend years believing that the world is safe only if he doesn't exist in it. Love is dangerous. Being seen is risky. The past is a secret that can never be told. And this is exactly what happens to those who suffer abandonment trauma. Survival, how grief disguises itself as freedom. Now, let's move to the second phase. Simba's life after the escape. He grows up with Timon and Pumbaa. He eats bugs, sings songs, laughs all the time. On the surface, he seems happy. Free. Carefree. But look closely. He has no dreams. No plans. No longing. No talk of the past. He lives in automatic survival mode. And this has a name. Emotional dissociation. When trauma is too big, the mind splits. One part keeps living. The other freezes in the moment of pain. And Simba isn't living. He's functioning. Timon and Pumbaa are important figures. They're not villains. They are allies of numbness. They teach the philosophy of no worries. But they don't help heal. Because healing requires pain. And they fear it. Just like many friends, therapists, or partners who say, "Let it go. Move on. That's in the past." Well-intentioned, yes. But they avoid what truly matters. Entering the darkness with someone who suffers. Until Nala appears. She doesn't come with judgment. Nor with orders. She comes with a simple question. "Why didn't you come back?" And Simba responds with a lie. "I can't go back. I'm responsible for my father's death." It's the first moment he almost tells the truth. But he still can't. Because guilt is stronger than courage. Then she says something powerful. "The kingdom is dying. Not, we need you. Not, I miss you. But, the place you love is falling apart." This line changes everything. Because it touches not the ego, but the heart. This is when Rafiki enters. The old baboon everyone thinks is crazy. But who, in fact, is the only one who sees the truth. He hits Simba with a stick. And says, "You are not dead." Then, he takes him to a pool of water. And shows Mufasa's reflection in the clouds. But notice. He doesn't show Mufasa's face. He shows Simba's face reflected in his father's image. This scene is brilliant. Because it's not about revering the past. It's about realizing. You are him. And he is you. But you must choose who you are now. Abandonment trauma isn't just losing someone. It's losing yourself in the process. Rafiki says something few notice. The past can hurt. But you can either run from it. Or learn from it. This phrase is an invitation. Not to return as king. But to face the pain without repeating the cycle. Because many who were abandoned have two possible destinies. Run forever, like Simba did. Repeat the abandonment, by leaving others first. But there's a third path. To return. Not to fix the past. But to choose a new future. And here ends the second block. Simba doesn't return out of duty. He returns because, for the first time, he understands that running didn't free him. It only isolated him. And that his father's love wasn't in the throne. It was in the voice that said, "Remember who you are. Not the king. But, my son." The return, how healing isn't an end, but a beginning. The third act of the film is the return. But it's not a triumphant return. It's a fragile one. Simba hesitates. Cries. Is afraid. Doubts. And when he finally enters the Pride Lands, it's not to fight Scar. It's to confront his own guilt. And Scar, in the climax, says the line every survivor of abandonment has heard. "Your father died because of you." It's the echo of internalized guilt. It's trauma screaming. "You don't deserve to be here." But this time, Simba answers. "No. You killed my father." It's the most powerful moment in the film. Not because he defeats Scar. But because he breaks the internalized lie. See. The real battle isn't physical. It's symbolic. Simba doesn't kill Scar. Scar falls alone. Like someone devoured by their own lies. And the fire around them? It's not chaos. It's purification. Just like trauma needs to be burned. Not hidden. Not repeated. But transformed. After the battle, Simba climbs Pride Rock. But not as the proud boy he once was. As a man marked. But present. And the final scene isn't about coronation. It's about continuity. He looks at the sky. Clouds form Mufasa's face. And he says, I looked inside me. And there you were. Not, I am you. But, you live in me. And that is the opposite of trauma. It's integration. Now, let's connect this to real life. How many of us emotionally ran away after a loss? Numb our pain with work, relationships, humor. Avoid responsibility out of fear of failure. Only returned when the weight of emptiness became greater than fear. Abandonment trauma isn't just when someone dies. It's when you learn that love is dangerous. Existing is risky. Asking for help is weakness. You are to blame for everything that went wrong. And the film shows that healing doesn't begin with strength. It begins with a look in the mirror. With a conversation with the past. With a, I didn't know it was possible to come back. The Lion King isn't about a lion becoming king. It's about a child who, after feeling invisible, discovers he is still loved. It's about guilt, forgiveness, identity, belonging. And most importantly, it shows that returning isn't defeat. It's courage. Because running is easy. Returning is hard. But only in returning can you choose who you'll be. Not out of pressure. Not out of guilt. But out of love. Thank you for watching until the end. If this video resonated with you, maybe it's because you also ran away once. Or hid. Or numbed yourself. Or thought you could never come back. But maybe now you understand. Remember who you are. Not the mistake. Not the guilt. Not the abandonment. But the love that still lives in you. Until next time.